everyone, welcome to another Sims 4 video. Today I am bringing you a Reshade guide / tutorial specifically with the two effects MXAO and CinematicDOF. These are two effects that I have had trouble with in the past that I have used in my presets, and with updates breaking, uninstalling Reshade and having to reinstall it, a lot of things were a bit mixed up and messed up in my game. So this guide is going to be showing you all of my settings for my Reshade in general, but specifically those two settings. And this is using my own Maple Reshade preset, which is on my Patreon, will be linked in the description. And I have made two previous Reshade videos before, so I will make a new playlist with all of my Reshade guides using the Maple Reshade preset. But if you are unfamiliar with my Maple Reshade preset, it has three different variations. It has the Create a Sim variation, which is the one we have now. It has the gameplay variation, which is better for gameplay, less shadows, just a bit more neutral. And then we have the photo or picture preset, which has a blurred background, which is where the CinematicDOF effect comes into play. So back to the Create a Sim variation, which the most pressing issue that I had was MXAO. If you were unfamiliar with what the MXAO effect does, it basically adds the shadows to my preset and many other presets, of course. It just kind of adds a more shadowy detail. It makes things feel like they have more depth. And unless you have been very lucky with Reshade and MXAO and everything, there is a lot of tuning you have to do to get it to look the way you want most of the time. And everyone does have their own preference with this effect. Like, some people want a really shadowy game, some people just want a light shadow. The way that you see the shadows in my game right now is how I've always wanted it, and how it took me such a long time to get it to look like this. So without further ado, I'm going to show you all the settings and kind of give you all of the tips and tricks to get the MXAO preset or effect to work in your preset. So as you can see here, we have all of my active effects in my cast preset. We have the Luma Sharpen, we have this bloom effect, Technicolor 2, MXAO, and Dehaze. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is actually because after the Lovestruck update, when Reshade stopped working for a little bit, I feel like if everyone used Reshade, you would have known about that time period. But yeah, there was a couple of days where Reshade was not working in The Sims 4, so I uninstalled Reshade and installed Gshade. But by uninstalling Reshade and installing Gshade, it deleted everything that I had for my presets, like all of the settings and toggles. So then when I eventually reinstalled Reshade, it just all disappeared and I had to start from scratch. And even though I had uploaded my Maple Reshade preset to Patreon, it still wasn't looking the same when I put it back in my game. So I'm going to show you all of my settings for this preset, all of the toggles, as well as the preprocessor definitions. So here we have my Luma Sharpen. This basically just adds a little bit of a crisp, a little bit of a sharpen to the game. If I toggle it off, you will see that there's not much difference, but you will see it just adds a little bit of a sharpen, not super strong though. And these are all of the settings for it right here. You can just take that for reference if you want to look at it in your game. Next, we have the bloom effect, which just kind of adds a little bit of a bloom, obviously. This is what it looks like with, and this is what it looks like without. Again, not much of a detail, it's just a very slight tint. And these are all the settings for that. Very minimal, not super strong bloom. Then we have the big bad boy of all of the effects that causes all of the trouble, MXAO. So the MXAO effect is part of the Quint effects shaders, so you need to make sure you install all of those, I think, to make it work, or at least the MXAO effect. So these are all of my settings for the MXAO effect. I have the highest ambient occlusion, all of these settings, of course, and yeah, this is just how it all looks pretty much. Now, a really important thing to make sure that MXAO works, there's actually two important things that I had to make sure that was enabled in my game. So aside from all of these settings, number one, you want to click on the Edit Global Preprocessor Definitions button. And when this comes up, you want to make sure it says Global and go down to the third line where it says Reshade Depth Input is Reversed. You want to make sure that this is enabled to 0. Sometimes it is enabled to 1, or set to 1, I should say. And the reason why my Maple preset was not working for a long time was because this was set to 1 and it was kind of warping the effect. So make sure that this is all set to 0. I think this should already be at 1000, but these three should be at 0, I think. But especially this one, the input is reversed one. And once you've done that, just make sure that you enable it. It should take a few seconds to load and it will show up like it should here. Another thing to take into account is when you want MXAO to show up in Create a Sim specifically, you have to change a setting in your game options as well. Even if you have the highest settings, you want to make sure that edge smoothing is turned off completely for MXAO to work in your game. And yeah, that's just something you need to make sure that is turned off so that MXAO shows up. So yeah, that's all of my MXAO settings. Other than that, it should work pretty well. If you do have any questions, I might be able to help. And I will definitely be willing to help because this is my preset, so it's kind of like up to me to help people if they have issues. And then the other two settings are more color focused and just lighting. They're not really that strong. We have the Technicolor effect, which just kind of makes things more colorful. As you can see, like Technicolor really does a lot of the heavy lifting to make the game look how I want. Oh, it wasn't going back there. I was scared. Then we have dehaze, which does add a little bit of depth as well. I think it really pairs well with the MXAO setting, adds a little bit of lighting, a little bit of shadowing. So yeah, those are my Technicolor settings. And these are my dehaze settings. So that is all of my cast settings for the cast variation of the preset. I just feel like showing the settings is a lot more helpful than talking about it all the time, because seeing it, comparing it to your game can be a lot more helpful. But for MXAO to work, make sure that you change those two things that I mentioned. And then the second part of this video is kind of dedicated to the CinematicDOF effect, which does blur the backgrounds in a lot of Reshade presets, including my photo one. So if we go to my picture preset, I'm really just going to show you the settings that I use because I feel like that's a lot easier than describing things. And it's really the settings that do a lot of the lifting, but you can see how the background is already blurred. But yes, you can see how the background is very clearly blurred. It's not blurring around her hair or her clothes or anything like that. And it's really hard to recreate this. I can't believe I managed to perfect this when I first created the preset, because in the few weeks before I managed to fix this after the Love Struck expansion dropped, I found it really difficult to recreate. I don't know how I did it. So I'm going to show you my settings, how to use this in your game, how to make sure it's all the same when you download my preset. So if we go to the Reshade settings, you will see all of the active effects here, and I basically use all of the same settings for the other effects that I use. Same with my gameplay and cast, but we have the CinematicDOF setting, which is not on the other two. So looking at the CinematicDOF settings, the global preprocessor definitions should be the exact same as they always were. But yeah, I use autofocus. I also use the mouse-driven autofocus as well. These are all the numbers for this part of the setting. I would pause to read this and refer to it if you need to. And yeah, all of the settings here as well. I would just look at the numbers and make sure they're the same in your game if you're using my preset. Just like this. I remember when my Reshade was broken, I was like, when I managed to fix this, I need to record, look at all of my settings in case this happens again, because I could never lose this preset again. I'm obsessed with it. So yeah, that's all of the settings right here. So refer to this. If you have any questions, if it still doesn't look the same in your game, make sure to leave a comment or comment on my Patreon post. So yeah guys, that's how you fix MXAO and CinematicDOF with the problems that I had in my preset. It might be different with other presets, and maybe if you use G-Shade as well. This is specifically for Reshade. Some of the fixes might work for G-Shade, I'm just not sure because I know there are some differences as well as some similarities. But I'm using Reshade, that's what I'm using, the current most latest version. And yeah, if you have any questions, make sure to let me know. I'm happy to help as best as I can. Leave a like if you found this helpful, and download my preset if you want your game to look like mine with all of the 3 variations. And if you want to have a more in-depth look at my presets and how I get the settings to work and things like that. In terms of the hotkeys and things like that, make sure to check out my other 2 Reshade videos and my Reshade playlist. That'll be all for today guys, and as always, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you very soon with another Sims 4 video. Bye!